Coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
That sure was a game. Football happened. Football's back. Welcome. This is some bourbon on the rocks. Let's do this. What a absolute horrendous way to start your run it back, the push for 3 to start the dynasty. And quite frankly, you have some culprits. And I get it. It's a team game. But what it comes down to is Andy Reid's play calling in short yardage situations time and time again. Hey, maybe it's just me. Maybe I would give the ball to the greatest human being on the planet in short yardage situations instead of perpetually giving the ball to earmuffs kids. Fucking Blake Bell. Maybe stop doing that. Every single team knows it's coming. Stop it. And if Tony didn't have cinder blocks tied to his hands, if Sky Moore didn't eat a whole bunch of buttered popcorn like he's in the longest yard before this game, this was absurd. An absolute masterclass of how to blow a game. Give the Lions credit. I will give the Lions credit. They played a hard-fought game. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. They were ballsy. They went for it on that fake punt early in the game on their own 20. But my goodness, the Chiefs wide receivers let this team down. Andy Reid let this team down. I'm not saying it's doom and gloom. I'm not saying the season's over. When the Chiefs did this to the Patriots, what happened? The Patriots ended up winning the Super Bowl with that game over the Atlanta Falcons, a 28-3 game. The season is not lost. Let's have some real glimmer of hope here. This is an NFC opponent, okay? For all intents and purposes, this was as good of a loss as the Chiefs could have possibly had. But I am frustrated. I am upset. That is not the way to start a banner-raising season. Joe, to you.
So we saw some things that we've never seen before tonight. We saw some things we have seen before tonight, both equally frustrating. For the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, we lost in week 1. For the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, we didn't score at least 33 points. Something we've seen quite often is an extremely cute trick play on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 or anything like that, or a whole abundance of 2nd down, halfback dives up the middle, that style of play. That, I mean, like you said, you have the best player on the planet. Utilize him in those situations. We're better off at 3rd and 17 and letting Pat throw it than at 3rd and 1 because we're going to give it to Rashee Rice on a jet sweep or something like that. We've seen that time and time again, and that's been problems that we've all had with Andy Reid. And there haven't been a lot of them, but it's a significant one that keeps popping up. And if you would have told me that we would have held the Lions to 21 points and lost, I would not have believed you.
14 points. 14 points.
Yeah, you're correct.
The defense was outstanding.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney gave him 7. You're right.
If you're Chris Jones, I get the last drive with them running the football. Teams have always ran the ball against the Chiefs, even with Chris Jones there. Okay, the Chiefs' defense was outstanding. If you're Chris Jones that are agents, they have to say, bleep this. They give up 14 points against a top 5 offense last year. Come on now. Before we go any further, 2 quick things I'm going to hit on. Andrew R., thank you so much for the super chat, man. It says F, Tony. I'm going to say, we can't say what that means because I'm not going to be disparaging towards a player. So I'm going to say frankincense. He's talking about frankincense. He's a big fan of the smell. That's what he's going for, I'm assuming.
He needs some smelling salts after that game. Something.
And also, before we go any further, I know this is not the time. No one's going to be happy, but we actually have a thing to make you guys a little happier, hopefully. PointsBet Sportsbook running a new betting promo for new users. Sign up and place a $50 bet to receive a $150 promotional credit at fanatics.com. Even if that bet loses, you will still receive the $150 credit that you can use to purchase a new jersey of your favorite player. I'm assuming it's probably not going to be a wide receiver. To claim this offer, go to arrowheadaddict.com/bets by scanning the QR code on screen or by clicking the link in the description. Sign up for PointsBet through our link and make sure you receive your $150 credit. That's arrowheadaddict.com/bets. Offers available until September 18th to new customers with 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer. All right. Do you want to go with the negatives? Do you want to go with the positives? Do you want to go with coaching? Do you want to go with wide receivers? I'll let you start this, Joe. Since I've done my rambling, I'll let you get something off your chest here.
Well, for positive, Wes points out in the chat, I guess Kelsey's probably going to shave the mustache now. Said to keep it till we lost. But otherwise, there weren't a whole lot of positives in the second half. Most of it was negative. It seemed like if I were playing some kind of Mad Lib game and I was to throw in like just all the crazy things that would happen to cause a loss, like you have a holding on a big play, you have a tip pass, you have two balls go through Tony's hands, another one that he should have caught even though it was behind him, Sky Moore almost catching it on fourth down, the Lions getting the ball with 5 minutes left and us not touching again. Like if you were to just make up all these scenarios, everything is what happened. And credit to them, Dan Campbell outcoached Andy Reid, plain and simple. Never see that happening when Andy Reid comes off of a bye or time to prepare. Butker made a couple field goals, so cool. But honestly, that is kind of part of the problem as well, because there's the 4th and 2, there's the 4th and 3 that we could have gone for it, and we kick field goals against an offense that we know is going to be aggressive and try to hold the ball. And then instead of going for it, then we put ourselves in a situation where we're going for it on 4th and 15, which if any of the scenarios, if you were going to kick the ball, that one made the most sense to at least try to hold them on that side of the field. It really felt like we got too cute and it felt like we were overconfident. And I'm not overly worried about the season, but there needs to be a reality check for sure heading into next week.
Yeah, and by the way, I see people saying give the Lions credit. I did. I don't know if you guys missed the very beginning of what I said. I said the Lions,
give them credit.
They deserve a lot of credit. I'm happy for their fans. Man, I have no ill will towards any Lions fans. They've done nothing wrong. The Lions are an easy group to root for. They're fun. They're entertaining. They're on the up and up. They're in the NFC. Happy for them and their fans. They're a solid team. They won in the trenches, right? They have a top 5 offensive line. Aiden Hutchinson was absolutely outstanding. Excellent. I will say, you mentioned coaching. If you want to learn a little something about what they did and the Chiefs didn't do, they moved to Aiden Hutchinson inside a lot against Trey Smith. He just demolished Trey Smith. Juwan Taylor was getting away with, whether you say getting away or not, Lane Johnson does it. I always say if the refs aren't going to call it, well, then guess what? It's not a penalty. You use the gray areas in football to your advantage. Juwan Taylor uses the gray areas to his advantage. Okay. You know how Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they sometimes get called push-off merchants. Well, if they're not calling it, it's not a push-off. Juwan Taylor wasn't false starting because it wasn't called. Okay, if you want to say he was getting away with it, fine, but it's not a false start if it's not called. And so they moved Aiden Hutchinson to the inside. And what happened? He demolished Trey Smith. He was a game wrecker. The Chiefs got beat, man. They got beat, and it comes down to 3rd and short, 4th and short, kicking 2 field goals when grand scheme of things, fine. But you have Patrick Mahomes on your team and you don't trust him to get 2 yards. But then I look back and say, well, you don't trust him on 3rd down and 2 anyways because you're going to put freaking Blake Bell back there. I just don't understand the Chiefs' game plan. I'm seeing play Justin Ross. Justin Ross didn't get a huge opportunity, made a huge catch late in the game. And you're like, all right, it's a Justin Ross 4th quarter.
Kind of on that though, some of the players that we were missing, I felt like where's McKinnon at? I thought coming into this game we'd be utilizing him a lot more. He had the reception on Pat's very first completion, never to be seen again. And we had those quick plays to Clyde, a lot of action for Pacheco in the screen game. Maybe it's because they don't trust the wide receivers, which frankly, after that performance, other than Rashee Rice, the only guy who didn't drop a pass, and Justin Watson, I understand that. But some of the play calling, it really felt like they thought they were playing Madden on all pro or something like that, and that they didn't have to actually put forth the best effort. It did not seem like they would put the foot on the gas. There were training wheels on the play calling the whole game.
Yeah.
Until 4th and 25. I misspoke earlier, 4th and 15, so 4th and 25. And it's a lot of questions.
I will also say, I get what people are saying. Yes, Juwan Taylor looked pretty solid in pass protection because he was getting that early start, but it also was a huge tell. I mean, Chris Collinsworth was talking about it as well. On that run play, it's a run because he's not doing that. This is something the Chiefs are going to have to take a good, hard look at. Donovan Smith looked extremely good, in my opinion. But what did I say? He's going to look great, but the penalties will still be a problem with Donovan Smith. What happened? A big penalty in a big-time moment. I love Donovan Smith, not saying that it's not a good signing for Kansas City, but you're going to have to live with this. You're going to have to understand this is part of his game. He has been a heavily penalized player, not just last year, but throughout his career. I think Donovan Smith had a great game outside of that one really bad penalty. In regards to the Chiefs' offense operating without Travis Kelce, the most noticeable part outside of the drops, okay, that's not changing with Travis Kelce back. Those wide receivers are still the Chiefs' wide receivers. I wonder what ISM's up to. Amir Smith-Marset, you wonder if they could have used that guy right now, but let's not.
Can we get Nico off IR? Can we get him back? And your man Richie James nowhere to be seen. I know he catches the ball. He doesn't drop.
But my question is, when plays broke down, the only guy that really made stuff happen, Rashee Rice here and there, was really Justin Watson. That to me was the biggest loss of Travis Kelce in this game, was when plays break down, who are the Chiefs going to look to? Mahomes had time, a lot of those scrambles. He had a lot of time. No one was getting separation. No one was coming back to the ball at times when he thought people were going to. There's going to be a learning curve here.
There is, and it looks like it's going to be a bigger one than I originally anticipated. I came into the year believing this was the deepest wide receiver core, even though it was honestly the most improved that we've had. And I come away feeling like I really wish we would have traded for DeAndre Hopkins or signed DeAndre Hopkins or something like that. And I don't expect Kadarius Toney to have the worst game of his life every single week. Kind of reminds me of the Bengals losing to Cooper Rush in week 2 last year after not playing any of their starters in the preseason. Like, you're rusty, okay. I don't expect him to drop that many passes, and he was open on them. But for all the concerns about how bad the wide receiver group was, this did absolutely nothing to assuage them.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I can't tell as far as outside of the short yardage situations, which, again, were abominable. Those were horrendous. The play calling was fine. They can't account for 12 drops. Like, if you're a play caller, you're sitting here, Kadarius Toney's wide the bleep open. That's what Sky Moore, that 4th and 20, hit him in the hands. I mean, at some point, you got to sit here and say, all right, we had some good play calls. The wide receivers just can't catch the rock. I'm going to talk and hit on some of these super chats. I appreciate everyone for these super chats. Thank you guys so much. One from Pumpa B. Sterling, remember you saying Sky better than Pickens?
That one that Pat floated a little bit too high for Sky. My first thought was that George Pickens is definitely tall enough to leap up and make that catch. Hey, sometimes genetics get you, and they got him on Sky there.
Hey, appreciate you, Bubba, for that reminder. Daniel, appreciate you, man. Says Mahomes made some great throws. The drops hurt. Need to pay Jones. Held Detroit to 2 offensive scores, which should get a win. Welcome back, AA. Welcome back to the chat. Daniel, appreciate you. Rhett says, when you're in the bottom third and spending, this is what your wide receiver core looks like. That's fair. I think they're trying to build it a different way, though. They're trying to build it through draft capital. They're trying to build it for control for long term. They didn't want to go out and pay Odell Beckham Jr. money to a middle wide receiver, right? They weren't trying to pay that money to Juju Smith-Schuster. They thought they could spend a second rounder on Sky, a second round on Rashee Rice. They have a former first rounder in Kadarius Toney. They thought that this would be enough to bolster over time, having the OTAs and training camp to get gelled. Didn't work. We'll see. It's one game. We're obviously overreacting now because all we have to go off of is one game. So that's kind of where we're at. Let's see a full season play out before I'm going to start calling everyone a bust. Andrew R. says, Andy Reid has issues calling the Chiefs wide receivers on the phone. The calls keep getting dropped. Andrew, Andrew, love that, man. And then Joey Valdez, appreciate you, man. Says Burrow has Chase, Allen has Diggs, Mahomes has. We can't say Kelsey because he's tight end, not wide receiver. I think it's a little unfair. I get what you're saying. Travis Kelsey's still that, right? No one's confusing Dawson Knox for a legit wide receiver one. Travis Kelsey you can confuse for. Travis Kelsey is the wide receiver one, even though he's a tight end. I get your point, but still, that is his main target. The drop just can't happen.
Well, and I think that a lot of if you were assigning storylines, what we had thought coming into this game based on the wide receiver core, Tony, when he's able to be on the field, spectacular, makes plays all the time. That didn't happen. Sky Moore, said by Brett Beach himself, taking a major leap forward. He's going to be really involved and have the juju role. It's certainly what I personally thought. That didn't happen. Justin Watson being the deep guy, sure, he worked. Justin Ross, barely involved. Richie James, not involved at all. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had one catch. Everything that we thought about the receivers in terms of taking a step forward, it did not happen through week one. And that is concerning, particularly in Tony's case and particularly in Sky Moore's case. Rashee Rice and Watson were the only two that I come away like, okay, you at least met expectations, or in Rice's case, season.
Patrick, you were at the game. Talk to us, buddy.
Apologies if we have a bad connection. I'm in the car. Deepest wide receiver group in the NFL. And by deepest, I mean deeply, deeply shitty. They can't catch. They lost that game, not because Chris Jones, because they can't fucking catch. Unbelievably horrendous melt by the Chiefs. They deserve to lose that game. They should have whooped. And they couldn't move the ball because the receivers can't catch. And the only thing that they're almost as bad at as catching, getting open. Nobody was open. I had the all-22 view. Those guys, Sky Moore, it's just the voice in the darkness. Blows. Or couldn't get open, couldn't catch the ball. Anything. The whole game. When you're most reliable.
Hey, Patrick, how many drinks deep are you right now? How many drinks deep are you right now?
I'll join you, Patrick.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Patrick. I was asking how many drinks deep are you right now?
Important. That's not important. You know what I didn't do? Didn't drop my beer this game. If I was
what's the over under?
What?
What's the over under, Patrick, of wide receiver drops versus Patrick drinks? I think I got Patrick. I think he said take him.
All right, I think Patrick's connection's a little wonky right now. Patrick, we're gonna have to pause for a second. Patrick, your connection is brutal right now. But man,
I'm taking Patrick.
I don't understand where the Chiefs can go from here at wide receiver, because we went into this year saying they're not bad, they're unproven. And I don't want to overreact over one game, but again, one game is all we have to go off of. All we have to go off of is a one regular season game. And that one regular season game, they pretty much all look like a bunch of bums. This is what other fan bases were saying this Chiefs wide receiver group has no one proven. Their best wide receiver is MVS, who has never gone over 700 yards. And I kept trying to push back, saying, all right, but just because you're unproven doesn't mean you're bad. No one gets a chance until that chance is given to them, until they go out and do it. Randy Moss wasn't Randy Moss until he got an opportunity. T.O. wasn't T.O. until he got an opportunity. And I thought, all right, I'm not saying any of these guys are going to be Hall of Famers, but we should see something from these dudes. The lights were too bright. I truly believe, especially that last Kadarius Toney drop, that was alligator arms. That was a man who was scared. That was a man who I've already had a drop turn into a pick six. Don't bleep this up. What did he do? Earmuffs. He fucked it up.
Then immediately after that, we have the Sky Moore long catch and Donovan Smith penalty. It was a lot of guys that we expected to take a step up that when the lights got bright, just like I expected the Lions to kind of shrink a little bit, being under this kind of pressure for the first time, our new guys, or the guys that we needed to step up, did not. That they shrunk. And where you go moving forward, obviously Kelsey is very important. Honestly, I think the solution is for Kadarius to catch passes and Sky Moore to turn into something, or else our offense is going to be evolving. And we'll use McKinnon more, I expect, because if you go a few more games and you can't trust Sky and you can't trust MVS other than the deep passes, then I don't really know where else you go other than scheming up Kelsey and McKinnon and then a lot of Pacheco. And it looks like we're very willing to use him in the receiving game this year, at least based on that evidence. But otherwise, I mean, the wide receiver misses and the McCall Hardman and the maybe Sky, they start to look a lot more glaring on Brett Veach's resume. That's the position he's been weak at.
Yeah, I mean, you go from McCole Hardman in the second round, Rashee Rice, obviously very, very early. We're not going to call that one yet. And I don't even want to call on Sky Moore. Again, he's entering his second season, but it's not looking good. When you're looking at what he has done, the two spots Brett Veach has missed on has been wide receiver and edge. And Karlaftis looks nice, right? And FAU is we don't know yet. But in his tenure, defensive line and wide receiver have been about the two positions Brett Veach has not hit on. Those are two very important positions in today's NFL. It's great when you hit on Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round. It's great when you hit on some offensive linemen. But in today's NFL, you have to get somebody who can get after the quarterback. You have to get somebody who can catch the fucking ball. And Brett Veach has struggled in that aspect.
And it's a little ironic in that sense, too, in that, the guy that we had that can catch the football, that like essentially Travis Kelce, if he were to theoretically want to ask for more money, I feel like his value went up tonight, whereas Chris Jones stayed the same or went down. It's just an inverse of what we expected coming into it. The defense showed out, the wide receivers let us down, and it looks like we need Kelce to stay healthy more than we originally anticipated.
Oh, Andrew back in with the with the great puns. Andrew, thank you again for the super chat. Chiefs wide receivers' favorite song, Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot. My biggest issue, quite frankly, including wide receiver drops, including everything, Andy Reid's play calling in short yardage situations.
Agreed.
We have seen this too many times. We saw it in the preseason, and I said, you know what? I'm going to take a step back here. Andy Reid's not going to give us his actual play calls in the preseason. That's just what they're going to do. Because Colin Saunders was licking his lips that Saints game. When Blake Bell got over center, they knew it was happening. Well, they did the exact same thing again. Blake Bell, actually had the defense offsides. But because he's not a legitimate quarterback, he played a little bit in Oklahoma at QB because it has not legit in the NFL decided, hey, screw it. I'm not going to snap it. I'm not going to get the free 5 yards in the first down. Let's wait a second. Let's wait for the defense to get set and then get stuffed. Like, how many times do we have to see the exact same play, the exact same scenario play out before Andy Reid says, you know what? We're better on 3rd and 5. We're better on 3rd and 7. Fuck it. We're better on 3rd and 17. At some point, just run these short yardage situations like you're in a 3rd and 5. Just throw the damn ball. Run the damn ball. Do anything besides what you are currently doing because it cannot be worse.
It's like that. The only way that you would give the ball to Blake Bell in a situation and to run these cute plays is if you weren't confident in your ability to pick up the play regularly. Like in Rookie of the Year, Henry Warrengartner, when he lost like his powers and had to do all the trick plays and the underhand toss, he did that because he sucked at playing baseball. Pat Mahomes doesn't suck at playing football. He can get you 1 or 2 yards if he's got 2 shots to do it. I don't understand the philosophy. You're coaching like you've got Jimmy Garoppolo behind there or Mac Jones or someone worse. You have the best player, and it's something we've seen repeatedly over time. And for it to show up in a moment like this, where we, especially coming after the first half, where we had an opportunity to go up 2 scores, and we rushed the ball, we used Clyde on 2nd down, we weren't aggressive enough. And I'm putting the blame on Andy. If I were to evaluate a first game of Nagy's tenure as offensive coordinator instead of Eric Bieniemy, it is not a good grade. And as much as I think that Andy's the one calling the plays and making those decisions, we're 0 for 1, buddy. And we'll see how Washington does this weekend. But it was really a poor start for Nagy. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, dude, it's okay. I have no issue with the play calling, quite frankly, outside of those third and shorts. But that was the same thing
Which
last
is
year.
important.
No, I get it, but we did the same thing last year.
I'm with you overall. Yeah.
Overall, it was fine. I'm not going to blame Matt Nagy, just how I wasn't going to blame Eric Bieniemy last year. End of the day, this is Andy Reid's team. He's the one in charge. He's the one that calls the plays. We know all this stuff. A couple of super chats to get to. Ryan Wisman, thank you so much. Says, why I was afraid of us being skinned alive in free agency. I assume that's in regards to the wide receiver market. Jimmy Anderson says, no winning without Kelsey, and he's old. It's over. I ain't going there, man. I'm not going there. Let's not overreact completely over one game. Rhett says, what's so difficult about QB sneaks or normal running plays on short yardage? That's a very good question. I've been asking the exact same thing. When I was at the final day of training camp, we were there, talked to Patrick, and Patrick even said in a big game, if it's the Super Bowl, he might have to call his number. Mahomes has talked time and time again how he actually wants to put the QB sneak back in the playbook. It's not his decision. It's not his decision. Coaching staff will not let Mahomes do a QB sneak. That is the information that we have gotten from Mahomes himself. So I'm with you. They should bring that back. And then you bring up another good point. Why not just use a normal running play? Don't get it. Love Andy Reid, one of the best offensive minds in NFL history. Yet on 4th and 2, he acts like his quarterback is Matt Schaub, Deshaun Kaiser. Like, I don't understand this. He just completely shits the bed. He acts like he's Matt Patricia when he gets into a 3rd and 2. I don't get this.
I don't get it at all either. And it's almost as if we should plot and try to lose yards on 2nd down, which I guess running on 2nd down kind of makes sense in that sense. But I really hope that, especially going into next week against the Jaguars, that we reevaluate the strategy in those short yardage situations and in those moments, because when you face teams that look at the way that the Lions won, they can control the clock, keep the ball out of Pat's hands. I mean, that's the recipe, and everyone knows it. And if we don't have the wide receivers that can catch the football, we don't have the aggressiveness to go for it in short yardage situations, we might find ourselves in this situation again.
Yeah. Want to give one more shout out again. If you guys are wanting to buy a jersey, you guys want to bet, we have the best promotion for you at PointsBet Sportsbook. New betting promo for limited time. New users can sign up and place a $50 bet to receive $150 in promotional credit at fanatics.com. Even if that first bet loses, you still receive the $150 credit that you can use to purchase a new jersey of your favorite Chiefs player. To claim this offer, go to arrowheadaddict.com/bets by scanning the QR code on screen or by clicking the link in the description. Offers available until September 18th to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer. I like this from Shane. If you want a little bright side here, thank you for the super chat. Look at the bright side. Harrison, butt kicker, is back, baby. And I said that. Going into this year, Butker's going to be back. He's going to be the 2nd best kicker in the NFL, just behind Justin Tucker, like he was before last year's injury. Harrison Butker, if you want a jersey, I see Jimmy Anderson. Nobody wants that jersey. Get a Butker jersey, baby. He's back.
There you
the
go.
Dude's back.
Rasheed Rice looks good. Get his jersey.
I was talking to Nick Lowry, Chiefs Hall of Fame kicker, right? So he's been here. He knows this. He had a major ankle injury at some point in his career, and talking to him it takes a long time, man. It's not just the physical, but it's also a little bit mental. You have to learn to trust that again. Butker had the entire offseason to get right, to get healthy, post-Super Bowl, which, by the way, huge kicks in the Super Bowl. But he's back, man. I'm all back on Harrison Butker being who he was prior to last year. The healthy 2nd best kicker in the NFL. Yeah, I get it. The positives aren't great, you guys.
I mean, shoot, going into the game, honestly, when we were trying to figure out if Kelsey should play or not, the evaluation was if there's a game that he's going to miss, it's okay if we lose to the Lions because they're an NFC team. We get him healthy. The only real negative would be if we lost someone significant to injury. That's a big positive. We lost. It sucks. But we get to go into a fresh slate against an AFC team. Like we didn't lose ground in a potential number 1 seed race other than just having a loss. So that's a positive. That's a win. Our defense, honestly, until the very end, I was impressed with. That's a positive. Mahomes still looks like a king. And we'll figure out the rest.
All right. Shout out to Seth Floyd. We have a Lions fan in here, but I appreciate the super chat. Appreciate you hanging out and appreciate you being pretty kind in here as well. Say, just a reminder, everyone, that Tony was a first-round pick. I'm a Lions fan, and I'm going to enjoy this win by drinking some nice tequila. Congratulations on the win. Congratulations to Lions fans. You enjoy the tequila. We got some nice bourbon over here, but
congrats. We're upset with you, but congrats.
I don't. What's funny is I find myself finding hardly any fault in the defense. You give up 14 points. Sans Chris Jones. No Charles Omenihu. L'Jarius Sneed is coming off of an injury. You play with fire. You played well. Give Steve Spagnuolo a lot of credit, by the way. Spagnuolo drew up a phenomenal game plan for the majority of this game. He was working with the hand he was dealt, and he surprised even us. He wasn't sending Drew Tranquil on a ton of blitzes. He sent Nick Bolton at times. He sent Willie Gay Jr. at times. He was sending everyone else than who you would expect. Spags called a hell of a game. End of the day, it comes down to the offense. Tony having a perfectly thrown ball, right in the breadbasket, pop out, pick six for Branch. Congratulations to Branch, a rookie. Has to be a pretty cool feeling for him.
Well, and hope he's all right after that non-contact too.
Nah, it was a cramp. He should be good.
Oh, he's good. Okay, cool. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So I had no issue with the defense. Zero issue with the defense. What it comes down to is you spend all this money on the offense. You have all this money with Mahomes, all this money with the offensive line. And then you choose not to trust the offensive line in short yardage situations. You choose just to completely say, hey, we're going to pretend like we have the 32nd ranked offensive line in the NFL. You gave them all this bleeping money for a reason. You drafted them for a reason that high, and then you don't use them. Again, I'm not trying to say the sky is falling, but again, all we have to go off of is one game.
Sky's dropping.
Sky's dropping.
I'll tell you that.
Sky Moore did not sky for the balls that hit his fingertips. That dude does not have any sort of vertical.
George Pickens does.
It's a sunk cost. No, it's a sunk cost. George Pickens is not on this team. We can't keep going back to this.
Justin Ross has the height. I against another team next week in the Jags that has an offense on paper similar, in my opinion, better than the Lions, that can attack in a lot of the same ways, like the intermediate level of the field, control the running game. It's going to be a similar matchup, and we've got a lot of adjustments to make. And I'm really curious to see, because, again, Spags called a great game. Jags are going to see what he did, make adjustments. Peterson knows as well as anybody how to make adjustments. So the look-ahead line, I was trying to check if we were still solid favorites like we were prior to this game. But the Jags have a blueprint now, and it's on Reed. He's got the extra rest. I believe in Andy Reid. I believe in Mahomes. I hope we get Kelsey back because that's a huge matchup, particularly if we're going to have the AFC Championship game in Kansas City again this year.
Super chat from Rhett right here. Thank you again. Appreciate you, Rhett. Says, this was the Lions Super Bowl. They dumped G-Raid on their coach, and they had fans in the stadium watching the game. Good luck with Goff. Man, I'm not going to go that far. I kind of joked about it. You know, this is the Lions Super Bowl, that stuff. But think back to 2017. Okay? Think back to 2017. The Chiefs were playing the Patriots on the NFL home opener. Kareem Hunt fumbles the first ball. But what happened after that? The Chiefs punched the Patriots in the mouth and kicked their ass. Mm-hmm. And then it was no looking back from there. I will say, if you want a little positive here, remember how the Chiefs kicked the Patriots' ass that season? Patriots made it to the Super Bowl that year. Okay, so it worked out okay for them. If you're a Chiefs fan, it's going to work out okay here if we're following the same storyline. But the point is, Detroit Lions were trying to prove a point. They were trying to prove that, hey, we were not just a second half team last year. We were not just a team that's a feel-good story. We are legit. And the Chiefs tried to do the same thing in 2017. And I get all the excuses of no Chris Jones and no Travis Kelce, but this is the NFL. You do not want to hear excuses. It's not excuses. It's just results. And the result of this was the Chiefs weren't good enough on tonight. Tonight's game, they were not good enough. Too many drops, bad play calls. Dan Campbell, can't believe I'm saying it, outcoached Andy Reid. That is what it came down to.
You and I both play golf. Sometimes you're hitting them out of bounds. Sometimes you're chunking them. You don't have it. Tony, like I said in the chat, he played great in the Super Bowl. He's been great when he's on the field. He had a bad game. It happens. Sometimes you don't have your swing that's in the right spot. Your opponent hits a really nice shot like Dan Campbell did, goes for it early, keeps the pressure, runs the clock out with 5 minutes to go. Sometimes someone plays better than you that day, and that's okay. And I believe in us moving forward. But we do need to get to the driving range. For sure.
Jalen Butler, dude, appreciate. He's been a member 1 year. Appreciate your 1 year, man.
Hey,
congratulations. Awesome. Congrats to Jalen.
Happy anniversary.
Says, I enjoyed the game minus the loss. A lot to look forward to this season. Would love to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. Lions-Chiefs rematch wouldn't be too bad. I actually had a caller on radio last night. Maybe he's I don't know, philosopher, because he said the Chiefs were going to lose to the Lions, but beat the Lions in the Super Bowl. Well, he's halfway there. Congrats to that guy. And then Jimmy says the point proven was without Kelce, you don't win. I'll let you handle this one here, Joe. Appreciate the super chat, Jimmy. Do you think that this is enough to say without Travis Kelce, the Chiefs can't win?
No, because it took more drops than I can count on my hands, and it took a comedy of errors at the very end of the game. I mean, if Donovan Smith doesn't have that penalty, then it's very possible that the drops don't even matter. Everything that could have gone wrong, other than injury, seemed to go wrong in the game. So I don't think that without Kelce, we can't win. Mahomes clinched the AFC West in December 2021 without Kelce. Kelce has had games where he hasn't been hugely impactful, and we've won. This is just a situation where we didn't make the plays when we needed to make the plays for lack of concentration, lack of preparation, lack of strategy, whatever it is, it didn't happen. But we can win without him if something were to happen. It's just a lot harder.
Yeah. I like this from Michael in the chat right there. Saying without Kelce, the receivers must catch the ball. It's what it comes down to. Noah Gray had a couple of nice plays. Again, this was a glimpse at life after Travis Kelce. If you're looking at this glimpse, it's not looking good. Noah Gray wasn't the issue. Noah Gray had a couple of nice plays. That one rumble, stumble, bumble, like a graceful gazelle / rhino going through a china shop was very impressive. But again, what it comes down to is you have to be creative. You have to be different. And the Chiefs were not good enough in tonight's game. Play calling, I think, was fine outside of the short yardage situations, which is, again, a very hard thing to overlook. Okay, you're not judged on what you do in first and second down. You're judged on what you do in third and fourth as well. You can't be good on half the downs and just forget the second half. They were brutal on third and to an extent fourth, because I think they should have gone for it a couple times on those 4th and 2s when they were in deep in Detroit's side. Didn't do it. It happens.
And it's part of knowing your opponent as well in that sense. And I really want to see a more aggressive game plan next week, particularly in those situations. If we're in a game where the other team can control the clock for so long, you have an aggressive coach on the other sideline like Dan Campbell. He's likely to go for it. Even that 3rd and 10 play that they threw to Josh Reynolds that Trent McDuffie caused the fumble in the first half, that looked like they were going to set up going for it on 4th and short. Doug Peterson is going to employ a similar strategy. He's an aggressive coach. And I hope that we recognize it and play to our opponent's likely strategy moving forward, because that's the kind of stuff that gets you beat by teams that you shouldn't lose to.
Dude, I love all the trolls in the chat. It's incredible. I mean, it makes me laugh. I mean, we've given the Lions so much credit tonight. We have Bengals fans in this place. We got Broncos fans in this place. You know when
I'm
you know
glad you're
you're on
here.
top.
Cheers to you.
You know what? Yeah, cheers to all you other fans
Mhm.
being in here. You know when you're on top, when you just won the Super Bowl, and every other fan base comes because they're preying on your downfall. Happened for about 20 years with the Patriots. Get ready for the Chiefs dynasty to reign. This is one game. Y'all acting like a game in September means the Chiefs ain't going back to the playoffs. Folks are acting like the Chiefs losing one game by 1 point to what's going to probably be a playoff team by 1 point on September 7th means the Chiefs are cooked. This is the Chiefs without Travis Kelce, without Chris Jones. Maybe Chris Jones is gone. Maybe Travis Kelce's gone. How many times do you think a pick six off a receiver's hands, just perfectly thrown ball right there, like a little baby, that a safety's going to come up, make a great play by Branch, very instinctive one-handed catch. No disrespect to Branch. Score a touchdown. How many times a week is that going to happen against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, sometimes the other team drops a ball and you run it back for a touchdown in the Super Bowl and you get a ring. Sometimes the team drops the ball in week 1 and you start out 1-0. I think we'll turn it around, but it's a rough start. The ball just didn't bounce our way. And we didn't trade the capital that we traded for Tony. We didn't put the investment into him that we have to expect him to drop passes like this. It's not what he's been his whole career. The question is if he can stay healthy, not if he drops passes. I don't expect it to be a problem moving forward. we do have a couple more chats in here. Do want to shout out Andrew R as well, who is looking ahead to next year's draft. The Chiefs should draft. I'm familiar with this guy, Stonehands Featherstone from Texas State. Go Fighting Armadillos. I do think Stonehands Featherstone would fit right in, so we appreciate that, Andrew.
I love this because it's really fun to see the other side of this. As a Chiefs fan, we have never seen the other side of this. I'm 29. I love Lynn Dawson.
I will be this
Let's be real. I was not alive to see Lynn Dawson. I don't remember those glory days. The Chiefs are in the glory days right now. And why I say this is fun. Grew up a Chiefs fan. Tyler Thigpen, Brady Quinn, Kyle Orton. Kyle Orton's one game still is just imprinted in my mind. But hear me out. How often did you hate Patriots fans? How often when the Patriots started off the season 2-2, 2-3, when Brady looked bad, how many times did you, me, and the national media, how many times did we say, is Brady cooked? Are the Patriots washed up? Is Bill Belichick over his head? And then you look up, oh shit, it's the Patriots in the AFC Championship game yet again. Chiefs fans, this is what it's like. You lose one game, folks coming out of the woodworks, preying on your downfall. Is Mahomes overrated? Is Andy Reid too old? Can they do it? It's September 7th. Surprisingly, I don't know if you guys know this. Didn't know if you guys knew this. It's interesting. The Super Bowl is not played September 7th. The playoffs aren't September 7th. It's going to be okay.
We've got a long ways to go. And I remember that Alex Smith performance over the Patriots because I was sure Tom Brady's career was over. And then he won 2 or 3 more Super Bowls. So as long as we don't have the worst wide receiver drop game that we've seen in some time, and as long as we don't make consecutive massive mistakes in a row in the most critical part of the game, and as long as our, other than Mahomes, best offensive player and best defensive player miss the game, then we'll be all right. If all of those things happen at the same time, we might lose by 1 point.
One of my favorite comments I see right here, let me see if I can find this. This was really good. It says it's different. Mahomes has not played a playoff game on the road. You know why? Because he fucking dominates, dude. Like, you know why? What do you want? They're the one seed in the AFC. You know what? He's going to say, you know what? I want a challenge. Put me on the road. Well, yeah. Things fall their way. The Tuck rule. Deflategate. Things fell the Patriots' way. And guess what? They still won. Those championships, those banners still hang up there. Whatever your thoughts are, doesn't matter. I have a lot of respect for Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the Patriots. I have no ill will. You use every little advantage you can to win. Man, I've talked to a lot of people in the NFL. I've talked to some folks that have some behind-the-scene investigation knowledge. Every team does exactly what they can try to do, everything possible for an advantage. They try everything. Patriots got away with it, and are those banners still hanging? Oh, yeah, they still are. It is what it is. I just don't understand all these people who are so angry, so upset, preying on the Chiefs' downfall. It's because they're scared, baby. It's because they're scared. Another super chat from Brian. Appreciate you, Brian McCullum, right here. Says, congrats to all the, can't say that word. As I said to my kids, was this loss in January? It doesn't matter if it isn't in January, baby. Wake up call. Good call. Good call, man.
It's a win that you have now, and holler at me in January if a win then feels the same. Because I promise you, those February wins feel a little bit better than these Week 1 wins I remember from the Alex Smith game.
What I will say is one of the more underrated aspects. We touched on it briefly. Not just Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. Let's not touch on Chris Jones because we don't know how that's going to happen. We don't know if he's going to be here, if it's Week 8, if he gets traded. We have no knowledge there. Everything we have told, it's not close. Okay, and they keep saying that it's been 10 days, a week and a half since they've talked. It's not close right now. But what I do want to bring up is Charles Omenihu. Charles was supposed to be the big free agent signing for Kansas City. A defensive lineman who can swing inside and outside. He's going to miss 6 games. Now, I've said I'm not worried about the Chiefs' defense for the first 6, 7, 8 games of the season. If they're bad, well, that's to be expected. We have seen that in a Steve Spagnuolo offense. Not only that, there's a lot of new pieces. The defensive line, they're going to go through this feeling out period. I don't have a ton of faith. I mean, nothing against FAU, but in a rookie edge rusher being a legit bona fide starter. We saw it with Karlaftis last year. We saw it with Aiden Hutchinson last year. Yeah, he had 3 sacks his first game, then did nothing until the second half. We saw it with Kayvon Thibodeau. But I think Charles Omenihu being missed this game and for the next 5 weeks is actually a pretty big storyline that's somewhat flying under the radar.
Absolutely. And the team that we have today is obviously not the one that we're going to have in the games that we're really going to remember and think about. Injuries, barring injury. Getting Chris Jones back by Week 8, getting Omenihu back, especially how good he looked in the preseason. He looked dominant when he was on the field, rushing from the inside. And not that the pass rush was an issue tonight, but just adds another feather to our cap. And in my opinion, the biggest improvements that I want to see are obviously the wide receiver drops, the strategical things that probably aren't going to change on the short yardage situations like we talked about. But I do want to see more out of the linebacker group. They came alive in the second half a little bit. Nick Bolton blew up that play call and got the tripping penalty. Drew Tranquil, I didn't see a whole lot of. And not that the Lions really destroyed us offensively, but late in the game when they needed to run out 5 minutes, they could. And those are some areas that I want to see improved because I'm just expecting the offense to be better because it's impossible to be worse. It's the first Week 1 game in Mahomes' history that we haven't scored at least 33 points. It's probably not going to be that bad moving forward. And if it is, then we need to reevaluate some things.
Hey.
Oh, welcome back. We made it. We're glad you're home safe.
Nobody's ever gotten out of Arrowhead faster. Okay.
That was impressive.
It was. Like Arrowhead to Overland Park during the show.
Oh, who'd you bribe?
Right? It was we had a good parking spot. So like I said, they can't catch. That's the reason they lost the game. Nobody could catch. I hear COVID is on the rise, but I feel really relieved to know that none of the Chiefs receivers will catch it. Seriously, like the defense was silver lining. I thought the defense was sensational. Played really well. Karlaftis was great. Trent McDuffie was great. Michael Dennis stepped up. FAU had a couple quarterback hits. They were batting down passes like crazy, making plays. I mean, they got Kadarius Toney'd. Our buddy Zach Best, his dad was calling him cadaverous phony. It was rough. It was a rough game for Kadarius Toney.
I'm gonna go listen to. I listen to his music sometimes on Spotify. I'm gonna go listen to some of his old albums tonight and see if I can draw some inspiration. I hope we get something fresh out of him soon, because I love Toney. I love his talent. It's about as rough of a game as you can have. I think he'll improve. I was saying earlier, it reminded me of like Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming out slow last year after taking the preseason off the starters at least. And I hope that's all it is.
A couple quick super chats to get to. One from Jalen says, I still hate the Patriots. Let the trolls roll in because the Chiefs will adjust. I've eased up on the Patriots, man. I respect. I have a dislike of the Patriots, but I have a fond respect. Any team that can do that for that extended period, they have my respect. T-Chains says, we don't have any good wide receivers. Rice was solid, though. Hey, appreciate you for the super chat, my guy. Always love seeing you in the Discord. But I don't want to be all doom and gloom. You know, it's been one game. We've been pretty angry, mostly with the wide receivers. But we can't be praising them throughout OTAs and training camp where we see them day in and day out. And then all of a sudden we see one game and we're sitting here saying they're all a bunch of bums. Like, that's just disingenuous.
They were tonight. They just were tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't – look, the Chiefs are going to figure it out. Like, they're really good. They've had rough stretches before. Last season, early in the season, the offense struggled a little bit when they had a lot of new faces. They had to figure some things out about that. I will say, I think part of the reason they struggled was – and I want to see the numbers on this, but anecdotally from the stadium, they were rotating guys in so much that it sort of, you were like, man, how is like, because I wanted to see the receivers, so I would call them out. I'd be like, okay, there's, it's MVS and Toney and Sky. Oh, here's Rashee Rice is in. And it's just like, how's Pat supposed to get into a rhythm with these guys? Like he doesn't have Kelsey, so he doesn't have his number one guy to go to. And he used to kind of trust Juju. Juju was his, okay, my other outlet guy, my receiver. They rotated so much, I think a little too cute. I think he targeted 12 different guys in the receiving game. Like, he needs a couple of anchors that he's used to. The one who was out there, it seemed the most to me, was Sky Moore. And he just, again, this is anecdotal. I wasn't watching him every single play, but when I was, he wasn't getting open, and he was struggling a little bit with the drops there at the end. So it's tough, but you know what? Kadarius Toney doesn't miss that ball, like either of them, and they win the game. If he doesn't tip the pick six and he catches that ball at the end, the Chiefs are going to kick a field goal, Harrison Butker field goal, and win the game in the end. So as poorly as they played, if you're looking for a silver lining, I think if you're a Chiefs fan, I think you got to say, you know what? They could not catch a cold. They didn't have Chris Jones. They didn't have Travis Kelce. They're playing a team that everyone thinks is a playoff contender, and they lost by 1 point.
So I'm looking at I was curious. I just looked up the snap counts. So MVS led wide receivers with 20. Sky Moore was right after him with 19. Rashee Rice in the first half. And then this was something that I'm really curious to see as we move forward in the season. You talked about Travis being the trusted target. Rashee Rice in 12 first half snaps had 4 targets. Like, there was a concerted effort to get him involved, and I really expected Sky Moore to be the Juju role, like that trusted guy. But especially in the first half, a guy's first action, he gets the touchdown, obviously, but getting 4 targets on 12 snaps shows an indication that they at least want to make you part of that trusted circle. So I'm optimistic about Rashee Rice, and I hope that they continue to do that moving forward. I'm excited to see that, especially if Sky continues to struggle, like you said.
Super chat here from Jalen. Welcome, Pat. So welcome here, Patrick. I've never called you Pat before, and I don't like it. You're not a Pat to me. You're a Patrick or a Patty. Like if I call you Patty, I feel comfortable. That's me with you at the bar after like I don't know, 5 or 6 KC beers. But he goes on to say, "I'd give KT a pass because he helped give the Chiefs a Super Bowl win. It's Week 1." As far as overreactions go, Patrick, we've talked about it. I've said my piece. I've said, hey, all we have to go off is this one game. I understand the overreactions, but also, it's Week 1. It's all we have. We have no other finite information to go off of in 2023. Yeah. Super Bowl year happened. It's over. The Chiefs won. You're rocking the patch. I'm rocking the shirt. We get it. They won. But it's a new year. How much overreaction, especially at wide receiver, is going on right now?
Look, fans are emotional. We don't like to see our team lose, especially as Chiefs fans. Chiefs don't lose very often. So it's hard when it's a game where you feel like they kind of just shot themselves in the foot. I mean, look, hats off to Detroit. They played hard. That was a crazy environment. It was the loudest I've heard Arrowhead in a while. And they stood tall and they didn't buckle under the pressure and they made some mistakes themselves. Look, fans they're gonna panic because, as you mentioned, small sample size. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of the season, the end of the season. When the Chiefs lose, people panic. They get hot. They start fighting in the Twitters and the comments and all that stuff. But I think history's on Kansas City's side. Andy Reid won every year he's been in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is sensational. Travis Kelce probably could have played in this game, but they were cautious with him, and rightfully so, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. Chris Jones is going to be back. Charles Omenihu is going to be back. The young guys are going to be playing better as the season goes on. So this was an unfortunate loss for the Chiefs, but we may look back on it when all is said and done and think about it like we thought about the Colts game last year, where it was just like, we should have won that game, but we didn't. And at least they lost to a quality opponent this time.
And I will always point this out. The Chiefs lost to the Colts. They still won the Super Bowl. End of the day, that game does not matter in the slightest.
Yeah.
Like, if the Chiefs end up going, first off, even making the playoffs, this game doesn't matter. This is an NFC opponent. This does not affect seeding unless you have the same. Like, this is so far down the list of importance. As far as just a general fan perspective, as far as a looking forward perspective, this is all we have to go off of. But as far as an actual, how much does this game matter? This is about as far down the list as you could possibly have. That's what it comes down to. I'm happy for the Lions. I'm happy for their fans. They've not been relevant since Barry Sanders was there. I mean, let's be real now. I mean, Nirvana, Alice in Chains had just released Jar of Flies, the EP. Dirt came out and then Jar of Flies. Like, Alice in Chains was in their prime, okay? And that's when the Lions were relevant. So let's let them have a little fun here. We saw you and me, Patrick. We met at Joe's, the OG. Lions fans were packed there. They did a great job at Arrowhead too. I'll give them some credit. But
Lions fans were cool. They were. I didn't run into a single, douchey Lions fan the whole weekend.
But at the end of the day, as we were saying earlier, I want to get your thoughts on this. Super Bowl's not won September 7th. This is a long season. Can you give us some positive outlooks as far as the Chiefs are concerned?
Yeah, I mean, like I already said, you're going to get Chris Jones back. You're going to get Travis Kelce back. You're going to get Charles Omenihu back. You've got Andy Reid. You've got Patrick Mahomes. Like, these guys they're going to win a lot of games this season. And right now you saw a team that looked like it could have used a few more preseason snaps, particularly on offense. They got a lot of young, talented receivers that I think that they're really excited about. And it just came to be a confluence of drops in this game. And we saw it with Rashee Rice in the preseason, right? He couldn't catch. And, sometimes the nerves take over. I will say one thing, and I know we're supposed to be talking about positives here. I'll say this for Kadarius Toney. He probably shouldn't have been out there as much as he was. Mm-hmm. He was injured all preseason. He didn't get any preseason games under his belt. Throwing him out there that much was probably a mistake. But again, you're not expecting to go into that game without Travis Kelce, and he's one of your seasoned guys. Richie James hasn't played very many snaps with this team. He's played no real game snaps with this team. So it's just going to take, I think, some of these guys a little bit to gel. But my advice, because I know Andy Reid watches this podcast and he specifically waits for me to give him coaching advice in the NFL.
As he should.
I
know you changed 3rd and short.
I know they like all these receivers. I would pick a core group that you like and just kind of work with those guys. And it's fine if you have a package here and there you want to bring, but like when Pat's dumping it off to Blake Bell and running backs, like these guys, he needs to get into a rhythm with them. He needs to understand where they're going to be. And you saw that tonight. Like ball was a little bit behind a guy. The drops, they're not on the same page yet with his velocity. Like they just haven't had the reps that they need. So I think when we're talking about positives, I think you just need to remember that like you got a lot of new guys running around out there. They're going to have some growing pains. It's going to be fine. They're going to win a bunch of games.
I think at the end of the day, you saw why Justin Watson, for one, is on this roster. I think there's a takeaway there of Justin Watson. I've said time and time again heading into the season, Chiefs fans were upset with Justin Watson, saying, where's the upside? What's he bring to the table? The reason for Justin Watson is you have to be this high to ride, right? If it's a roller coaster, you have to be better than Justin Watson to make this team and then to get some playing snaps, right? To get some snaps in the field in actual game action. And what do we see from Watson? He was the best wide receiver tonight. I mean, you can say Rashee Rice, I get all that. Watson had some of the biggest plays, the biggest moments. He drew a huge 40-plus yard pass interference call against him. Justin Watson has a role on this team. How many weeks are we going to sit here and say Justin Watson was the best wide receiver for this Chiefs team? 3 tops? I mean, so what you're seeing here is, again, I'm trying to frame this in an aspect of you probably saw the worst week in totality of the Chiefs wide receivers. Let's not judge them completely off of 1 week. Let's have a larger sample size to go from. If you only watched the Colts game last year, you would say the Chiefs fucking suck, right?
Yep.
But that same team that was 2 scoops of ass won the Super Bowl. 1 week does not define you. 1 week does not define this Chiefs team, and 1 week does not define this wide receiver room. It was one bad week. Again, I will say it again. We have only this week to go off of.
Yep.
But we're looking at a lot of guys. When we look back on this full season, this was their worst week.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, too, so not only obviously the problems with the wide receivers, the running game never got going either. And in the second half of the season, we really took off. The running game played well. I'm looking at the box score now. Pacheco, 8 carries, 23 yards. Clyde, 6 carries, 22 yards. Pat, 6 carries, 45 yards. If Pat is our best rusher by 22 yards and nobody else has more than 25, like that's an issue. It's going to be a lot easier for the defense. So I think that part of the offensive game plan is going to improve as well because Pacheco will get healthier. I don't expect us to – I hope we don't feature Clyde that frequently. But, I mean, if you're going to have Pacheco be the person who catches the most passes and Mahomes is going to be your highest yards getting rusher, you're going to have problems. Just from the top to the bottom, it was a mess for the offense, especially in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like I said, they're going to be fine. They're going to be absolutely fine. There were actually, it's hard to find them when you're so frustrated about a few plays here and there. But again, we talked about some of the positives of the defense. Go look at how many yards per carry the Lions averaged in this game. I believe it was 3.5. Chiefs did a pretty good job in the running game. Again, this is a defense playing without Chris. We talked about it in the offseason that we thought maybe this defense had a potential to be top 10. The linebackers have been sensational. The coverage was pretty good by and large. Now, look, it wasn't exactly murderer's row of wide receivers out there for the Lions outside of Amon-Ra, but the defense, if they had gotten it together on offense in that second half, we'd be sitting here talking about how the defense won them that game when they had a sluggish day on offense and had some bad drops and had had a tip ball for a pick six. So lots of good things to look forward to. They're going to get refocused. That's a veteran coaching staff. There's a lot of veteran leaders on that team. You saw, I don't know if it was on the broadcast, but Travis Kelce going nuts every time Blake Bell caught a ball. The crowd started chanting Travis Kelce's name after the Blake Bell touchdown, or the big Blake Bell catch where he shrugged off the tackle and had the big run. So, and at the end of that game, hit Sky Moore in the hands on 4th and 25, and he dropped the ball. Like what? Sometimes, like, it's the NFL, man. Like, you don't just blow teams out every week, even when you're the Chiefs. And the Chiefs win a lot of games like this, like we thought they were going to win. With at the end of the game, they have the ball, Pat scrambles, Harrison Butker field goal. Hell, that's how they won the Super Bowl. Sometimes, though, sometimes what does the guy say in the Big Lebowski? Sometimes you eat the bar, and sometimes the bar eats you. Sometimes the other team, get you. They're trying to win too. But I like the Chiefs' chances in these games. And another thing you should take heart in if you're a Chiefs fan and you're watching this is just like look over at the comments and look at all the sad, salty fans from like every other fan base out there, like celebrating like they just won the damn Lombardi because the Chiefs lost a game by 1 point in September. That's got to make you laugh. Like I remember what it was like to be one of those fans because my team was such trash that like I'd see the Patriots lose, not even to the Chiefs, but like just to anybody, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is great! I'm so gratified that the Patriots just lost to the Miami Dolphins." And then like at the end of the year, the Patriots would win the Super Bowl, and I'd be like, my hate for them would just grow. So embrace it, embrace because I know it's hard sometimes for fans that during the week after the Chiefs lose, like you just want to shut everything off. You don't want to listen to the national media. You don't want to be on Twitter because you're just annoyed. Just take it all in.
Hey, you have no idea how hard it is being a Chiefs fan when they lose. Yeah. And then I'm also a Mizzou alum and a Mizzou fan. Dude, it's just brutal, man. Every single year I'm like, hey, Mizzou might be better. And then every year they're like, hey, pal, don't get ahead of yourself. We're still Mizzou. We'll find a way to lose. Don't you worry.
Big game next week. Just like us.
Super chat from Vin Kate swore ready. Hey, appreciate you for the super chat. Said, forget the offense. The defense lacked setting the edge in run defense. Missing the shark, not Jones. I disagree to an extent. I think the Chiefs defense was, quite frankly, let me put it this way. If Chris Jones was there and the Chiefs defense gave up 14 points, you'd be thrilled, man.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
The Chiefs defense, without Chris Jones, give up 14 points. I'm thrilled, man. Like that defensive performance, run defense, pass defense, all of it, I thought was outstanding. That was a defense that heard everyone talking. They're going to be a bunch of bums without Chris Jones. They're brutal. They can't stop anyone. They can't stop a nosebleed. And what do? They went out against, again, as I said all week long, the Lions finished as a top 5 offense last year. They are a good team. Again, I've been trying to give the Lions credit this entire post-game show. They're a good team. They're great on play action. They have a top 5 offensive line in the entire NFL. And the Chiefs' defense played great. Sans Chris Jones, without Charles Omenihu, it was fine. They were really good. That's not the issue. The offense, in my opinion, the offense in Andy Reid bears the entire brunt of the weight in regards to this loss. It is on those two guys. And quite frankly, if you're a Chiefs fan, that should make you feel at least some sort of solitude, some silver lining of saying, how often does Mahomes and Andy Reid, how often does the Chiefs offense and Andy Reid lose you a game? 3 times a year? Twice a year? You look to that Colts game last year? I mean, seriously, this happens about 2 or 3 times a year, and everyone freaks out. And then you come back to earth and say, okay, there's one of the 3. There's one of the 2. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's why nobody ever goes undefeated, right? Like, it's just doesn't matter how good you are. It is a brutal, long season. And you get weird bounces of the ball. And I'll credit the Lions, too. Like, I've seen a lot of games at Arrowhead, and you're playing like a trash team like the Raiders, and like they make one play and they're running around. Like it wasn't that the Lions didn't celebrate, but I just think they're really well coached. Like they just seem to have their heads screwed on straight when they made a play, like particularly the way that they played in that second half. It wasn't flashy. They just tried to hang in the game. I think they were the appropriate amount of aggressive throughout the course of the game. They knew that they were going up against Chiefs and the best quarterback on the planet and all those things. But they did a nice job. They kind of like hung with it. They stayed the course. They played tough defense. They didn't make too many mistakes there. And they had a chance to win it at the end. And I thought the big turning point for me, and I said it at the stadium, was when the Chiefs had a 4th and short and they kicked that field goal to go.
Yes.
And I was just like, I don't like this. And sometimes that call I think would be the right call. Their defense was playing really well. But if I'm Andy Reid in that situation, I'm thinking about how my offense has been playing all night long. And I'm like, you know what? They've got a really good wide receiver over there. Like, this is pretty good offense. Like, I want more than a 6-point lead. And I'm gonna go for it here. And they were a little too conservative. And this was just one of those times where Mahomes wasn't able to bail them out because, I mean, in my view, he bailed them out like 3 times on that last drive. You know what I mean? Like, and they just didn't catch the ball. Like, what's the man supposed to do? You put him in 4th and 25 and he hit a receiver in the hand. Like, crosses the field. He was running to his left, I think, right? And he turned and he threw the ball. And what are you gonna do? Like, it's almost hard to get mad because, like, it's frustrating. But you watch, like, the more I think about that play, I'm like, well, I don't know, man. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like, remember we lost that game when Matt Moore started for the Chiefs and we lost to the Packers, and like the Chiefs were in that game, but like Rodgers made some ridiculous throw in the red zone, and like sometimes you're just like, I don't know, man. Like, what are they supposed to do? So the Chiefs just they shot themselves in the foot too many times, and they got to clean some things up, and they got to get a little bit consistent on offense. They'll get Kelsey back. I think they'll win next week. I think they will.
Before we get out of here, 3 super chats I want to hit right here. One from Diego Alonso. Appreciate you. Says, as a Broncos fan, appreciate you being here as a Broncos fan. We have the Neil Smith connection, right? The Broncos, Chiefs, Neil Smith, we're right there. As a Broncos fan, the Chiefs have nothing to worry about. You guys had one bad game. Your wide receiver depth may be lacking, but you still have Patrick Mahomes. Appreciate you, Diego. I'm excited, or should I say intrigued, to see what the Broncos look like with Sean Payton at the helm with Russell Wilson. Hearing Sean Payton call out Russell is an intriguing storyline for me, so I'm excited to see that. So appreciate you being here, Diego. Jared Murphy, appreciate the super chat. No message, but Jared, shout out to you. Appreciate you giving back to us. Thank you. It really does mean a lot. And then again, Vin Cantaswari Reddy says, Chiefs fan only calls Frank Clark as Shark Clark. All right, Shark Clark. well, we're only calling the Shark. Appreciate you. That's very nice of you. All right, before we get out, any final thoughts? Joe, I'll start with you.
It feels like Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. We lost by 1 point. I'm not worried. It sucks. It stings. But we had every opportunity to win that game, particularly late. Credit to the Lions. Good for them. Glad their fans had a good time. This was a moment where everything went wrong and we lost by the slimmest of margins. So bring on Trevor Lawrence. Bring on Jacksonville. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Patrick.
I like it, man. Repeating as Super Bowl champions is hard. Winning every year in the NFL is hard. The Chiefs had a lot of young players on that roster last year that waltzed in and won a Super Bowl. And I think this loss early in the season, I'd rather it's not the first one, but you know what? Good. You got work to do. There's very high standards. So good. You get hit in the mouth. You didn't come out of the gate and go 4-0 or anything like that. Good. You took an L to a good team at home. And I guarantee you, it is not a pleasant sight in that locker room right now. Those guys are furious with themselves, furious with each other, particularly the receivers. So, I think it's a good, healthy loss for them if they can respond to it. Over the long run, I think they'll be able to look back and say, hey, we learned a lot from that first game against the Lions. And then the other thing I'll say is they got 10 days now before they have to play another game so they can get Travis healthy and lick their wounds. And Andy, we don't need 15 running backs and 37 receivers rotating in and out of the game. Like, just get in there with Pacheco and McKinnon.
Clyde looked fine, man. I would give Clyde some credit. He looked okay.
How's anybody going to get in a rhythm? You know what I mean? Like, you come in for a play and then you're out for 10 and then you come in for 2. Like, let Clyde get into a rhythm. Let him see how those guys are blocking for him, how the defense is attacking. Let the game slow down. It's the first game of the year. Let things slow down. I think that was the big thing. They rotated guys just too much and nobody ever really got into a groove. And then every day for an hour, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, everybody at the jugs machine. Mm-hmm. It's jugs week in Kansas City. Get the extra sticky gloves. I don't know what they got to do, but they better catch the ball next week or they will lose.
Pine tar or something, whatever it takes.
Yep, pine tar, Gorilla Glue. I mean, do what you got.
I'll start with this. Let me start with, I'm seeing a lot of Juwan Taylor and false start talk. I'm going to start with this. If the refs don't call it, it's not a false start. We saw it with Lane Johnson. We see it with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in regards to offensive PI. If they don't call it, it's not a penalty. That's the way the NFL works. You saw Mitchell Schwartz talking about it on Twitter saying, hey, you try time and time again as a player to get as much of an advantage as you possibly can. Every single player does this. Until they call it, it's not a damn penalty. So Juwan Taylor, keep doing what you're doing. But on run plays, try not to be so obvious. Come on now. Now, wide receivers. Just take the bricks off your hands. Unstrap them. Don't eat buttered popcorn. It's going to be okay. In my opinion, I think the Chiefs wide receivers take a huge step forward. This, to me, was a lot of they were in their own dome. They had the yips. Kadarius Toney had the yips. That last drop was a case of, hey, man, I don't want to be out here. Don't put me out here. I'm wide open. Ball hits me right in the hands, right in the midst. He drops it. That's on Kadarius. I get it, but that's a Chuck Knobloch situation going on right there. A Rick Ankiel situation going on right there, okay? So I'm not 100% worried yet unless this continues. Mahomes looked fine. Defense looked outstanding. Donovan Smith looked really, really good outside of that one penalty, which, again, if you listen to me at all, he's going to look good all season long, but the penalties will still be there. And then the third and short, the fourth and short, that has to change. My main takeaway is that even with the drops, with everything that happened surrounding this game, if they don't have the absolute worst play calls in the history of sports going on third and 2, 4th and 2, 3rd and 1, the Chiefs win this game. Okay, they had a 2nd and 1 that ended up being a 4th and 3 because of dumbassery. That's why. They were 2 scoops of ass. 3. You know what? Fuck it. I'll give it the 3 scoops. 1, 2, 3. That was 3 scoops of ass. Okay? That's not going to continue. Those are my main takeaways. All right. Everyone who hung out with us, everyone joining us, everyone who's been commenting, everyone who gave us super chats. We appreciate you guys so, so much. We did the pregame, the halftime, the postgame shows. Everyone here who was here for all 3, thank you guys. All the Lions fans, sorry. You're not the Chargers. You have more than one. To all of the Lions fans, we do appreciate you being here. Mm-hmm. Celebrate this. This is a huge, huge step for you guys. A massive step for the Lions.
Great win.
Chiefs have been there. If you're a Chiefs fan, remember what that was like when you went from Tyler Thigpen, then Andy Reid came here, and y'all took that next step. When we took that next step. Remember that, okay? Lions fans, bask in this. For 1 week, you're the best team in the NFL. You deserve this. But we're going to have a lot more Chiefs talk coming your way all next week long. So until then, we are out.